How's it going, everyone? If you know me, you know that I'm a very political person, so I thought it'd be a great idea to do a reaction video to something I saw the other day. Now, this video is actually kind of old. It's back from January, and it's about why white privilege doesn't exist. So I want to start with a little bit of context for me. So I come from an upper middle class family in a working class town, and I am an Asian American immigrant. So I'm not necessarily part of the two parties or the dichotomy between black and white in this country, but I am an immigrant, and honestly, I'm not the woke type of progressive. Now, I am definitely progressive. You are probably not going to meet anyone more reasonably left-wing than me, because the further left you get from me, you start to get some of the woke people that kind of just freak me out and annoy me. So yeah, I totally supported Bernie in 2020 and 2016, and if you're from Massachusetts, vote for Ed Markey on September 1st. So that's where I stand politically. Now let's take a look at this video.
Woke white people, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please stop asking for forgiveness for your white privilege. You're not fooling anybody. You're not helping black people or any other minority. And your public confessions don't make you look virtuous. They make you look disingenuous.
Alright, so a couple seconds into the video, and I don't necessarily disagree with this guy. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not really into the whole woke culture, and I don't think people should be apologizing for the society they were born into, the color of their skin, or what their ancestors did, you know? So the people that apologize for being white or apologize for their great-great-great-grandpa owning slaves, it's kind of disingenuous because there's nothing you can do about it. But I know this video is going to get a lot worse as we keep watching, so let's keep going.
For starters, what is white privilege anyway? Because you're born with white skin, you have all these advantages that I don't have? Like what?
Alright, so clearly this guy's a little bit confused as to white privilege is, so let's define it for him based on Google. White privilege, a noun, inherent advantages possessed by a white person on the basis of their race in a society characterized by racial inequality and injustice. So here's an example. When you're born, you inherit the socioeconomic status of your parents. Now, being white statistically puts you at an advantage because you're more likely to be born in an upper middle class to upper class family. Whereas if you're black, you're more likely than if you were white to be born into a lower class or working class family. I'm going to give you another example based on something I know that's going to come up later on. So imagine there are two applicants for a job. In a just society, the job is going to hire whoever is more qualified, no matter what their race is. Now, in our society, which has systemic racism, chances are if the two applicants are of equal qualification, they're going to pick the white person, just because they feel like they're going to be more trustworthy, and that's how society sees white people compared to black people, where there's a stereotype of the scary black man. Although, to be fair, white people are more likely to commit fraud, so there might be a stigma around that, but I don't know 100%. Now, there is a rebuttal to this where companies are trying to bring in diversity by hiring people of color with quotas. And first of all, quotas are actually illegal, I believe. And second of all, it's a rather new phenomenon which has come up because of the social justice movement and woke culture.
Like you can get a mortgage loan that I can't get? I got a loan. At a great rate, by the way, and I got the house. Why would a banker not give a loan to someone who met the loan requirements? He doesn't want to make money? I've never heard of such a banker. Or how about this? You can enter a store and not be looked upon with suspicion, but I, a black person, cannot, except that has never happened to me.
Alright, here's the good stuff that's super easy to debunk. So this guy's trying to explain societal issues and why they don't exist using anecdotal evidence. That's clearly not how it works. A societal issue applies to our society. An anecdotal piece of evidence applies to your personal experience. But let's use the mortgage example. So according to Clever, a real estate data company, African Americans are twice as likely as white people to get rejected for a mortgage for no reason. So imagine if two people, one black and one white, had checked all the boxes to meet a mortgage. The black guy is twice as likely to get rejected for that loan. I'm also going to address his shopping example a little bit later, so let's keep on watching the video.
But if I was a young dude with my pants hanging down to my butt, I could understand why the store owner would be concerned. I used to be a cop. Believe me, I understand. If I owned a store, I'd be tracking that kid too, whether he was black, white, or anything else.
So, real quick, at first glance, the point he makes seems kind of reasonable, but if you look deeper into it, this style that he's describing, which would make people more suspicious, is usually associated with someone from the hood or someone from a lower income community, and these communities are typically communities of color. So, there's a bit of an implication that is made but not completely understood or realized by this guy. Essentially, what he's saying is that if you want to go into a store without being looked at suspiciously, dress white or dress like you're from an upper income, more classy community.
But there's another way of looking at this. In many ways, in today's America, blacks have more privilege than whites. It's been my experience that whites bend over backwards to give blacks every possible advantage. If two people are equally qualified for a job, the black person will usually get it. Big companies and prestigious universities fall all over one another trying to sign up talented black people. If you deny this, you are denying reality.
Tough talk for a fellow with a small cock.
So I really had to throw that in there because this dude's got a lot of tough talk talking about denying reality when the stats just don't back up his point. So according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, at financial companies, only 2.4% of the members of the executive committee are black, 1.4% of managers and directors, and 1.4% of senior portfolio managers. In tech, 1.9% of tech engineers and 5.3% of tech professionals are African American. Now, in the hiring process, Harvard found that with a group of similar candidates who all share similar qualifications, the only difference being the color of their skin, white candidates are 36% more likely to get callbacks than black candidates. So, reality doesn't back up this dude's point at all. So if you're going to talk about denying reality, you gotta bring in the stats, bro. And I assume the point he's trying to make is like some companies are trying to bring in diversity by hiring people of color disproportionately to white people. But this is a rather new phenomenon, like I said earlier. It's mostly because of the social justice movement that this is happening. And this really isn't that common. The only reason we know about it is because the companies that do it get a lot of coverage in the news, in the media. But most companies that are sticking to the status quo, they're not going to get any coverage. Nobody's talking about them.
A professor of women's studies at Wellesley College by the name of Peggy McIntosh. She wrote in an article in 1988 about all the white privilege she thought she had. She listed 46, including this one. I can choose bandages and flesh color and have them more or less match my skin. Wow, that's some kind of privilege.
All right, so what he's doing here is he's strawmanning. Basically, he picked one of the most ridiculous ones on the list, and then he applied that to the rest of the list to call the whole thing ridiculous. But let's look at some of the other points. 43. If I have low credibility as a leader, I can be sure that my race is not the problem. 21. I am never asked to speak for all the people of my racial group. Or here's a good one, number 15. I do not have to educate my children to be aware of systemic racism for their own daily physical protection. My guy thought he was slick by just ignoring the rest of the list, but no, we're calling you out on your bullshit.
To acknowledge your white privilege is supposed to make you feel bad. Only it doesn't. It makes you feel good because by acknowledging your white privilege, you're declaring yourself to be enlightened. And as a virtue bonus, it also makes you a better person than those whites who don't acknowledge their privilege. White privilege, which is supposed to make you feel bad, ends up making you feel good.
Alright, so there's quite a bit to unpack in this part, but basically what he's trying to say is that acknowledging your white privilege makes you feel like you're better than other people who don't recognize their white privilege. Recognizing your privilege isn't meant to make you feel bad, okay? Recognizing your privilege is meant to make you more aware of why other people make the decisions that they make, and it allows you to be more conscious about what you say or what you do around these people who might not have the same privileges as you. Like, for example, I have the privilege of growing up in an upper middle class family as an Asian American, which is considered the model minority, right? And growing up upper middle class, I was able to get into the school I wanted to and take on the amount of student loan that I have to. Whereas other people, like my friends, I ended up going to state school. But I don't criticize them for that because it's a smart financial decision. And I realized that not everyone has the same privilege that I had, being able to afford an expensive-ass university.
Meanwhile, the real damage is to blacks. What makes whites feel good makes blacks angry. More than 50 years after the civil rights movement, the message is, you're still oppressed.
Well, they're not necessarily wrong. Just because oppression today isn't as explicit or as overt or as physical doesn't mean it doesn't still happen, and we know that it still happens, especially with police brutality. That's why we had these protests we've had in the past few months.
I wouldn't deny for a second that there are privileges in life. They're all over the place. There's two-parent family privilege. That's huge. There's being lucky to be born in America privilege. There's good gene privilege. But white privilege? Doesn't it depend on the person? Let's take this for example. A black lawyer and his wife have a baby, and a meth addict, single white woman has a baby. Which kid has privilege? The white one? Because he's white? Come on now.
You guys don't know how ridiculously easy this point is to tear apart, okay? So this guy's trying to say that there's being born in a two-family home privilege, being born in America privilege, not being born to a meth addict privilege, okay? See, the issue here is poverty. It's pretty clear the issue is poverty, right? So here's some statistics on poverty in the United States. The top two groups to face poverty would be Native Americans in first place, with 24% of Native Americans in poverty. 22% of black people living in poverty, so that's second, are in last place. 9% of white people are living in poverty. So this issue is very much a poverty issue, but being born white puts you at an advantage because you are more likely to not be born into a impoverished family. Dude, PragerU is so close to the point. Like, they are just this close to realizing that poverty and race are very much related. And that's what white privilege is, but they completely just sideline.
And here's the kicker. Even if it were true, all those claims about white privilege, so what? Would it change a single thing I did? If white people apologize for being white, is that supposed to help me? In what way?
Alright, so this dude's back at it with the anecdotal evidence. My guy, this isn't about you. This is about our society, and how about all the other black people that are actually affected by this? And by the way, let's just not mention that you probably got away with all of these things because you acted white. Like, that's just what it is. You acted white. You might call it, oh, just acting like a regular person. You live in America, which is like a 70% white country, bro. So, you acted white, and that's why you're successful. That is why white privilege exists, dude.
So let's be real. White privilege is an attempt by the left to divide Americans by race. It's all theory and all nonsense.
So, I proved my point using facts and statistics, so I'm pretty sure it's not all theory and nonsense. But, I don't know about you, Mr. Tatum. I don't know what PragerU has been trying to put out, but like, I think it's all theory and nonsense in their videos, dude. I mean, I haven't seen a single statistic brought up in this entire video.
If you want to fall for it, go ahead. It's a free country. But don't try to sell it to me. I'm an American who deal with my fellow Americans one-on-one. Try it. It works. I'm Brandon Tatum for Prager University.
Dude, what was that outro? You're trying to sound all badass by saying, I deal with my fellow Americans one-on-one. Try it. It works. And then sounding like, I'm Brandon Tatum from Prager University. Like, bro, you turned into Ben Shapiro in a split second. But anyways, a lot of his points are just complete bullshit in this entire video. You know, they can be easily disproved, and he missed the entire point where white privilege is not, you're just born better because you're white, you know? That's like not the assumption people are making. What white privilege is when you are socially and economically better off because of the societal standards placed on white people versus black people. And that's the point that PragerU was missing, but they were getting very close to throughout this video. But anyways, that's been my video today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Share with your friends. That would be super appreciated. And this has been Fan-Tastix. I am out. Follow my Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram. See you guys.